Dan, how's it going?
It's good. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too. We did promise the community and a lot of people in our ecosystem that there will be some major announcements during Christmas. And I think here we are to deliver on some of those announcements. But at the same time, I think it's extremely important uh, to let them know some of the details of those announcements and what they're actually coming. One of the groups that a lot of people heard about, the 31 million users that they're part of an organization that elected to build on HyperCycle. They are making the announcement on January 7th and not Christmas Day. And we have decided to not be the ones talking. Let them do the talking. Let the world do the talking about what's being built on HyperCycle now. Um, but we have other things as well that they can go very well with this because people they're looking into like, okay, this HyperCycle, is it really the infrastructure that can enable the Internet of AI? And we know it is. A lot of people in our community know it is, but the rest of the world, they don't know that it is, right? Now, the difference between what we know and the rest of the world don't know, while we're getting to the rest of the world to know, is the actual opportunity that people they get to work on. Otherwise, if everyone in the world know, then it isn't an opportunity. So, um, so yeah. So I feel like uh, we're kind of living in a time that doesn't matter what kind of AI scientist you can talk to. So I was talking to, or I was looking at Eric Schmidt, the ex-CEO of Google, and he was saying there isn't anyone who know more than 1% of what's out there. It's just impossible. So, which means that there's like a lot of unknown, but the unknown is are they going in the right direction or not? And this is where people get to feel. So. So the three things that I feel like we want to touch on, one is that when we say 31 million users, this is at the low. We know that this organization has over 60 million users. And the important thing here is that why they elected to build on HyperCycle, in your opinion. So I'll let you talk about this, and then I can add on a little bit to talk about like the number two and then number three.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I can talk about, what I'm really excited about in terms of what this project is highlighting uh and the way that it's using hypercycle and what that speaks to for the future. Um, and all of that is really about the interface over top of the multi-agent system under the hood, which is made possible because hypercycle um, allows hypercycle nodes acting as agents to transact with each other and interact with each other across the boundaries that would otherwise keep them apart. So, if agents are inside of a single corporate data center, it's really easy for them to interact and transact with each other because they're all playing on the same team. But once you have incentive gaps that need to be overcome, then you need some kind of incentive mechanism. You need the ability for them to transact, to pay each other a little bit, for instance, in order to be able to convince each other to do useful work. And that's exactly what Hypercycle provides. And that's exactly what this particular project is really relying on under the hood, to
Right.
have all of these different agents being able to interact with each other. So, because of the nature of this particular project, it really highlights, and we'll be able to speak to this more directly once the details come out. It really highlights this aspect of Hypercycle and
We
requires
can.
it.
We can. We're not going to mention the organization's name because they want to be the one announcing it, their
Yeah.
entire leadership team. But we can talk that this I think because we promise our communities tell them what it is. Okay, so it's effectively what they've elected to build is a tool. They can talk to this tool, any one of the 60 plus million users, and that would be their companion. That would be the thing that they talk to that represents that organization. We're talking about organization with numbers of people larger than most
Yeah.
countries, as you all know. So
Yeah, and I think what's really cool here is that they're not talking to a single entity. They're not talking to a single corporate entity, but they're also not talking to a single AI entity, if you will. What they're really talking to, they're in a chat room where, thousands of different agents are available,
we
and
have
any one of them can be pulled into this particular room
right, right,
in order to interact with them and help them get their jobs done and figure out what they're doing.
right.
Yeah.
So the way to talk about a little bit about what we have witnessed so far and what the rest of the world would witness is that the actual interface that enabled them to talk to this, whether they go through texting or talk to it via voice. Let's say the actual open source that is being utilized, say it is Claude or it is Llama, and what's happening behind the scenes, like somebody's got a HyperCycle node that's got a subscription, let's say, to ChatGPT, and then that subscription is enabling this other node to talk to it in fractions of a second and respond, and then putting in the answer together that it's a composition of many different answers. And this is where the emergence come in, and then the emergence of the emergence, which is super exciting. And that's just if we were to say LLMs, but as we all know, AI agents, they have like 99 different, shape and form. So this is super exciting. And why we're excited about it again is because it proves that the factories that we are selling, remember, we're in the business of manufacturing factories that our community, when they have a factory, what does the factory do? It manufactures nodes. Those nodes, they enable people to plug them into any AI, so those AIs, they can talk to each other. That proves that those nodes actually work. So it's super, super exciting from that perspective. So people feel like, oh my God, I have this factory that is actually making nodes that is work. So I think this is the phenomenal from one perspective. The other point that I think you wanted to talk about a little bit about this, some of the added tools for those factories and for those nodes. You have
Oh yeah, yeah. So HTS is out. The Node Explorer is ready to go so that people can go in and use that to see their full history. I'm really excited about that coming out. We've got a number of demos that are queued up and ready to go. So as soon as we hit the new year, there's a bunch of stuff that's going to come out the pipe, and a bunch of stuff that has come out actually over the last couple of months.
that came out earlier than Christmas, about a couple weeks ago now.
Which
HCA.
one?
You
It
mentioned,
did, yeah. We pushed a pretty major revision to it yesterday, actually, Christmas Eve, that fixed up a lot of the issues that people are having.
wow, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And HTS is what does it stand for?
That's the Hyper-PG tilling system. But it is also, so there are two things that I think are cool about HTS. One is that it is using HyperCycle nodes under the hood. So we're eating our own dog food here.
Mhm.
And part of the reason that it was a little bit tricky to get that out the door is because of our insistence on using hypercycle nodes under the hood and building it in a decentralized and distributed way
Mhm.
from the ground up. So there's actually multiple different hypercycle nodes that are acting as servers. So it's a whole distributed system under the hood, and we sort of forced ourselves to do that in
Mhm.
order to.
So
Sorry.
for the listening, there is no dependency on HyperCycle and HyperPG. Those are all fully decentralized. And for those that they are not familiar with tilling, although this announcement is more for
Mm.
our 3,800 owners of node factories and growing. They know what tilling is. But for those that don't know what tilling is when your node is doing computation on an ongoing basis, it enables that node to actually manufacture other nodes. But that tilling includes the ability to the node to tell the world about what it has and to know about
Mhm.
the world of what the rest of the world has. So it starts by emitting a lot of cryptographic proof about its own computation, its own uptime, and later on about its own reputation. And those are extremely powerful elements because many people would be like, how would the node know that there is some computation somewhere that can help it? And it's the actual process of tilling that can enable it to learn about the rest of the network. It's got a heartbeat and it keeps doing that. So that's the HCS. And the other thing that in that thing that also was released a bit earlier, which is the Explorer. So it enables people
That's right.
to subscribe to Explorer. Here's the thing. In HyperCycle, because it's fully decentralized, there's no dependency on a ledger. So it's not like somebody can build an Explorer and point to some ledgers like, oh, okay, now we can see how many transactions and whatnot. That would be a third party. That would be the weakness. That would be not something that we would ever want to do. There are a lot of L1, blockchains or like databases that can enable systems out there, whether it is like an Oracle as a company or Microsoft or Google, or whether it is like, Ethereum and others. They work very well for human. But when it comes to those machines, they want to talk to each other. If they depend on that third party, it would not work because the time that it takes for a node to reach out to another node, if it's going to depend on a third party, it would take a lot of time, and then it won't be able to receive the response that it needs in that fractions of second. And it's also from scalability perspective, you all know if it depends on a third party, and we talk about billions of nodes, eventually they're not going to be capable of going to that third party, that it becomes a central point of or single point of failure. So yeah, I think the
We hadn't actually released the Explorer yet. Yeah, you just did. That was the release of the Explorer.
yes.
Yeah.
So that Explorer is that effectively it's a service that if you have a node and you subscribe to that Explorer, then the rest of the world can see you. But if you don't subscribe, the rest of the world do not see you, which is not necessarily something that you would want to do. But if we've already noticed that a lot of nodes already subscribe to that, that they've been doing tilling for about a year and 3 months now. So for those that they don't know what HyperCycle does, the actual computation of HyperCycle started about a year and 3 months ago with a process called tilling, precisely 1 year, 2 months, and 25 days. And that tilling is the enablement of those nodes to manufacture, um, uh, um, uh, enable those node factories to manufacture hypercycle computation node or network node. Um, so the Explorer is that like if you subscribe to it, then others they can see that your node has been emitting those cryptographic proofs and heartbeat and so on and so forth. Um, but if you don't, it's okay. If you were to ever do any transaction or any thing that you would need, you can keep this data to yourself. And whenever you show it to someone, this data has all the necessary proof that it actually did exist. So that's the second part, all right? And then the third part is what most people, I think, care equally about. So the first part, we've talked about huge deployment that it's being done on HyperCycle that uses all the agents in the world, all the AI agents without having any borders or anything in the middle of it. It's all going peer to peer, which is phenomenal. The second is some of the releases that they came out earlier than Christmas. which include the hypercycling service and um, the Explorer, and there's I guess there's few more people they want to dig deep and find out. Now the third one is Project C8. Project C8 people that they've heard about Project C8 for the very first time publicly, maybe about a month ago in Twitter space. What Project C8 is going to be doing, it's a 200-day project that starts at some point in January. And what it does for every node factory, it starts adding more factories without people having to ever feel like that they have to, oh, do I have to buy this additional factory? Do I have to go reach out? Nope. This is one of those things that we feel like we always want to set expectations and exceed them. So somebody owns a node factory, be like, so my node factory, I buy it if it's at the very smallest level. Let's say I buy it for $400. Okay, the one that has 1024. Now, of course, if people they buy the master, $250,000 or whatnot. But when you buy that node the factory for which includes both what is a node factory is a node license. In order to make it a factory, you marry to the HYPC. Great, you've got that node factory. The added elements, some people heard about like Amifier, some people about the CTIP and all of those cool stuff. They would be airdropped into the node. So if you've been doing tilling, if you've had the node already married before that period, then you don't have to purchase those additional elements, whether they are a result of us buying companies, merging with other companies, getting those companies that we've invested in to be part of HyperCycle. It is something that somebody who owned a node factory was not expecting those things going to be dropped in. So what does that mean to somebody who's like, okay, well, I've got this factory bought it for $400. If I want to add those elements into it, so let's say it starts January 31st. And August 31st, after those 200 days, somebody wants to go and buy those additional elements and put them into this factory. It would be, so far, based on what we have seen with all of the elements, a minimum of $2,000 as opposed to $400. So folks that they are outsiders, they don't know anything about this entire ecosystem, they will see that the minimum is 2,000. And the reason why we are so confident of that, because the actual numbers, when you add all of those components together, is actually $9,800. So we're setting it up in a way that the actual, if people want to sell off, they'll be selling off at a $2,000. So those are components that, that's the market price of those components. Now, of course, somebody might say, but who's to say that this market price is going to be the same? It's not going to go up or whatnot. It might, but we've calculated all the elements to see what the floor is. And that's the beauty of this, because people that they are buying nodes, they're not just buying it because they want to, be part of a club or whatnot. They're buying a business, and if you're buying a business, you want to grow this business. For an outsider who has never heard of this, is effectively, as of today, the combination of those elements that they cost about $400 enables somebody to have a node factory that can manufacture 1,024 nodes. And that means that in about 6 to 7 years on average, if you're operating those nodes, you will have about 1,024 nodes. Imagine each and every one of those nodes, they're generating maybe $10 a month. So people, they feel like at the low end of it, if they're looking after those nodes, they could have something that a business that can be valuable. Private equity folks, when they look at a business that generates $10 per node, 1,024 nodes, that's about, 10,000 a month, 120,000 a year. That business can be worth 1.2 million. Now, did I say that? Not just me, almost every private equity person, if you were to ask them if that business is how much revenue generates, how much that business is worth, because that's a recurring revenue. Now, people they might say, but wait. So does that mean that like this is like the HYPC price, or is that like the CTIP, or is that like the whatever? All of those, if you even put them to zero, the actual business itself, that's what those private equity people they're telling you. That business is generating. So it decouples the value that people are creating because they're operating those businesses from the elements that they constitute that thing. It's kind of like you buy bare metal and plastic and all of this stuff, and you put them together and you manufacture this machine, and then this machine starts manufacturing machines, and then suddenly you have a business that is operating. So the project C8 is effectively by not just us, by us and all of the community members, by almost all the companies that we've invested in. We're kind of putting them together, and then we're growing from 3,800 to over we're saying over 5,000, but likely we might go a lot higher than that. We want to grow a lot higher than that. We want to have at some point, millions of factory owners. But in those 200 days, I think it's reasonable to say that we're going from 3,800 owners, about like 5,000 plus, and August 31st will come, and when people they look at it and be like, "Holy shit, you're over 20,000." You said 5,000. I remember you said 5,000. So let's keep setting the expectations to a certain level and exceed them. And I think it's quite exciting to see that, because a lot of people that they came into this, they came in for the long term, and they kind of see that it is a long term that really matter. Because today, if you were to look at, okay, this company called HYPC, what's all the assets that it's owned? They just look at the HYPC thing. But remember, HyperCycle owns all of those other things. We're bringing them together and giving them to the owners, not telling them, hey, you have to buy those. Amazing. So, because if you were to look at all of the HYPCs today, $418 million. The average is about $1 billion for the last 12 months. Okay, so we're talking about a company that is known to the world to be a unicorn, but the reality that we have on the ground think that they are a lot more valuable than this, and they're putting them all together. So then the node owners, they can benefit from that. So remember, there is no airdrop for any just somebody who owns just a license, just like some token, this and that. This is for actually the node owner, the node factory owners that they've been having that marriage, and that they are, those that they're doing tilling, there's additional bonuses that they're coming down the road that Project C8 will actually enable them. One of them is the uh, education credit. So what does that mean? So you have you own a node factory, but you're like, man, it's way too complicated over my head. Remember, you could be owning Starbucks, and all the details operating Starbucks is over your head. But somebody needs to learn this stuff. In order to learn this stuff, they need to spend time, effort, and often money. You don't go to university for free and whatnot. So that education thing is estimated to be between $3,000 and $9,000, because there's the project 999, we call it, 9 hours for almost anyone to learn just essentials. There's the 9 days just for the developers to learn to do some sophisticated stuff at those nodes. And there's the 9 weeks, which can enable somebody with a little bit of tech knowledge to become just as good as those developers can become in 9 days. So if people, they want to sign up to that program, they need to pay the educators. Remember, those educators, they're coming in from many different places. So Project C8 can put it in a way that it isn't we're not a company that's setting this up to make profit from this. Not at all. The educators and all of that are the ones that they will be making this money. However, a node owner is going to get those credits. So somebody owns a node, they can take that credit and give it as a present to somebody who becomes the operator. So this is how you distinguish. Like the node owner doesn't really need to learn all the details of how this factory functions, but an operator needs to do that. And if the operator needs to know that, then they need to learn. And if they need to learn and they're going to pay you money for that education, that's if they're extremely external. But if they know a node owner, every node owner, they have like that one ticket that they can give it to somebody. They may want to give it to somebody who is really gonna take it seriously. Um, so yeah, so that's super exciting. And as more exciting stuff they unravel, we will share with the community. Stay tuned for an announcement somewhere on the web. Somebody's going to be talking about it on January 7th. If it happens before, we will let you know. Project C8 will launch at some point in January. I said January 31st. It's looking like it might be a lot sooner as well, but at some point in January is when it launches. It will have about 30 days where the very first 30 days of its launch will keep the actual node factory at the whatever static price that it is. And then from there on, start adding the elements, and that node factory will start like growing to be a phenomenal factory. It has all the components that can actually function at a lot faster, better speed. Like for example, for those that don't know MFire is the ability to reduce the development time when you want to add any AI into a HyperCycle. So the metaphor that I've used is that like humans, they go and get ISP, Internet Service Provider, in the 90s. And they get like this technician comes in and spend all of this time to kind of plug it into your home and all of the stuff. And then they have to install those components onto your computer. And it takes like, wow, all of these hours. Imagine there's a tool that you can click on it and it does it in like, 10 minutes. So that's precisely what Aimifier does, right? So, and all the other amazing tools like CTIP and others that they get to be added. A lot of value being added, and we know that what the floor value is going to be of those elements, and we know what how beneficial would that be for node owners, and we're here to make sure that our clients are successful. If you are a node owner, if you're a node factory owner, you are our clients. We want to make sure that you're successful. So we continue in that journey. Any closing remarks you'd like to say, Dan?
That was great. Yeah. Yeah. Looking forward to this coming year. It's going to be great.
Fabulous. Well, thanks, Dan. I'll send this recording to folks, and hopefully they will push it to community. And we're always looking to uh, grow together. And remember, if you're part of this community, you're partaking in building this, and that's why we did it with full conscience that this Project C8, you are not going to buy for those additional elements, even if we have invested in all of these companies or bought those companies and bringing them together. You're just going to get them airdrop. No, of course, if somebody's going to come in after August, they're going to have to pay for it. Or through that period, there will be like stages of that. And then beyond January 7th, you'll be able to walk around town and tell them like, yeah, I'm part of this project that it's enabling over 60 million people. Um, so on that note, this entity, they have over 10,000 offices in the world, and they're going to have a lot of HyperCycle nodes in those offices. So for anyone who has a lot of nodes and they will want to enable this entity or partner with them or sponsor whatnot, let us know when the time comes, because they're really taking it seriously. They're starting with look over those 60 million people, but they want to have a RAG for each and every one of those offices, and That way, the data remains in each and every country. They are conforming to all of the regulations in all of these countries. Furthermore, the user is another level of that multi-vectorization that they keep the data into their own device. So imagine it learns about you, but it's yours that's learning about you. There's nothing going to the world. It's yours. And then in that center, it's got some confidential data. It stays in that center, it doesn't go to the world, and so on and so forth, which is super awesome. And of course, because it has a multi-agent system, that means it's capable of reaching out to all of the newest and latest AIs that are out there. All right. Thanks, Dan, and Merry Christmas
Yeah.
to everyone. And hopefully, people can treat this as a nice present from this group that's been working, nonstop to get us here.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Here, right.